Tonight's Halloween marathon continues. Assholes, tonight at 9.
Well, seen that one before. Yeah, I'm getting tired of the same old horror movies. You know what? I'm gonna go see that new Nosferatu movie. Yeah, there's a new Nosferatu, which is a remake of the remake. I'm very curious about that, so gonna go check it out.
I love making videos. Thumbnail.
So
I can't believe it's March.
It comes out on
Should I make a March-themed video?
Day.
Maybe I should do a video about that weird movie about leprechauns that Disney made. Or Irish the Hedgehog? I'll figure it out.
For now, I can play the game. That's right, the game. Yeah, Nosferatu on Super Nintendo. I'm sure you have. What's Nosferatu? Well,
Amy, what are you doing?
Oh, hey Walter, I'm just watching some angry video game nerd, and I'm planning my next videos. Want some popcorn?
Forget about the nerd and popcorn, you have work to do.
My popcorn!
You need to start working on your I Dream of Jeannie video, now.
What? Why? I didn't even hit 700 yet.
Wrong, take a look at my screen.
I hit 700 subscribers?
Yes. And you promised your subscribers that you'd make a video about Jeannie, so chop chop.
Gosh, Rooney, I hit 700 subscribers! Oh, Walter, this is the best day ever! I'm gonna go make that video right now!
Now I get to watch the angry video game nerd.
In North America, but it wasn't until after the turn of the millennium when I first heard of it. If it was in Nintendo Power, I must have missed it. Its obscurity has some similarities to the classic film. As the story goes, the filmmakers didn't get permission to adapt the Dracula novel, so they changed the names. For example, Dracula was renamed Orlok, but a court ruled against it and ordered all copies of the film to be destroyed.
First of all, thank you all so much for 700 subscribers. I'm reaching my goals every day, and I'm truly grateful for all of you, grateful. I'm stuttering over my words. I'm truly grateful that you guys watch my videos, even if I can be a little bit annoying, and even if some people don't like me, I still appreciate that there's some of you out there who watch my videos and like me. Second of all, 2 months ago, I made a poll asking you guys what I should talk about next for when I hit 700 subscribers. I put 3 shows: I Dream of Jeannie, Gilligan's Island, and Saved by the Bell. The poll was a bit decisive, but I realized that Gilligan's Island wasn't winning, so I made another poll asking you guys if I should review Saved by the Bell or I Dream of Jeannie, and you guys all picked Saved by the Bell. I mean, not Saved by the Bell. You guys picked I Dream of Jeannie. Obviously, you guys did. Which does make complete sense, because in my 600 subscriber video special, I talked about the Brady Bunch, and in my Brady Bunch video, I did mention I Dream of Jeannie, but I also mentioned Gilligan's Island, so then again, Gilligan's Island didn't win, but I'm hoping it will win when I hit 800 and do the poll for that, but I don't really know. But I hope you guys don't mind that the monkeys will get mentioned in this video twice. If you're wondering why, well, it's because both I Dream of Jeannie and the Monkees were produced by Screen Gems and were both airing on NBC together, except I Dream of Jeannie lasted longer than the Monkees, and actually I Dream of Jeannie came first, while the Monkees came in 1966. I Dream of Jeannie came in 1965. Speaking of Jeannie, let's keep talking about it. I Dream of Jeannie is an American fantasy sitcom television series created by Sidney Sheldon and starring Barbara Eden as a beautiful but guileless 2,000-year-old Jeannie and Larry Hageman as an astronaut, with whom she falls in love with and eventually marries. We'll get into that later. I already mentioned that it was produced by Screen Gems, and I already mentioned it was airing on NBC. From September 18, 1965 to May 26, 1970. Again, outlasting the Monkees, but I've already talked about the Monkees so much on this channel, so we can ignore that. The show originally aired for 139 episodes over 5 seasons, and Well, you can just leave it at that. There's a lot to go over with this show. And it's not even just the show. We have to talk about the cartoon and the TV movies, and like I said before, the connections with the monkeys. So buckle up, people, because like my Brady Bunch video, this video is definitely going to be an hour long. I'm hyped, though. I'm hyped, because at least we'll talk about the new monkeys. Yet. I guess to fully understand the plot of the show, we should talk about the pilot episode, The Lady in the Bottle. The Lady in the Bottle was the pilot episode for I Dream of Jeannie, and was written by series creator Sidney Sheldon and directed by Gene Nelson. It originally aired on NBC on September 18th, 1965, so before the monkeys. But anyways, it would not air again until fall of 1970, when the series went into syndication. In the pilot, we see Captain Anthony Nelson, our main character, although the main character is Jeannie, but he's on a rocket on a space mission. When his final stage misfires, his one-man capsule, Stardust 1, is unable to maintain orbit, and he has to make an emergency landing on a desert island in the South Pacific. There, while gathering items on the beach to form a giant SOS in the sand, he finds an old bottle that seems to move. When he opens it, smoke pours out, and a 2,000-year-old beautiful blonde-haired girl named Jeannie appears, dressed in harem clothing and speaking in Persian. In the unaired version of the episode, her first words to him are translated on the screen as, "Your wish is my command, master," and gratefully kisses him. Tony, shocked at first, realizes she's a genie, and that she can get him off the island. However, the language barrier between them is such that he can't get Jeannie to understand what an airplane or a ship is, blinking up a falcon and an ancient galley ship instead. Frustrated by this, Tony wishes idly that she could speak English, and she does begin to speak English. "Somehow I must find a way to please thee, master." She makes it quite clear that she is a genie and that Tony is her new master. He can wish for whatever he wants, and she will make that wish come true. Tony tests her, again wishing for a helicopter to come rescue him off the island. This time, she gets it right, and after it lands nearby, Tony realizes that he can't take Jeannie with him. Why can't he take her with him? Well, not only can't he explain her presence logically, it's left unsaid she would also complicate matters with the fiancé he's about to marry, Melissa Stone, played by Karen Sharp, the daughter of his commanding officer. So Tony tells her that she's free. He tells Jeannie that she's free of her obligation to serve him as a genie, explaining to her, "I rescued you, you rescued me, we're even." So he says goodbye and heads for home, but he doesn't see that Jeannie, smoking inside her bottle, rolls the bottle into his duffel bag and returns to Cocoa Beach, Florida with him. Upon his return to Cape Kennedy, Tony is debriefed by the base psychiatrist, Colonel Alfred Bellows, and when Tony tries to explain to the doctor about seeing Jeannie, Bellows believes that Tony is suffering hallucinations while stranded on the island, and that the image of the beautiful girl on the desert island was, in his opinion, that of his mother. But then Tony points out, "My mother's in Salt Lake City." But then the psychologist insists, "I'm a psychiatrist. I know a mother when I see one." So then he dismisses him. The doctor, worried about Tony's mental health, immediately phones his superior, General Wingard Stone. Now, you're probably wondering about Jeannie. Oh, don't worry. We're actually getting right back to her. Because in the meantime, Tony arrives home with Melissa. On hearing the shower in his bedroom, she wonders who could be using it. Tony doesn't know until he sees the duffel bag with the bottle sticking out nearby. He tries to shove Melissa out, but it's too late. Jeannie appears in his bedroom doorway, clad only in his shirt. Alright then, and of course, Melissa misunderstands this. She doesn't, she doesn't let Tony speak, basically. Well, he tries to, explain things to her, but, Melissa just yells, "It's a girl!" and storms out, because Tony's explanation is that she's not a girl, which, technically, yes, Jeannie's not a girl, she's a genie, but try to tell that to an old person, you know what I mean? So then Tony tries to get Jeannie to leave, but Jeannie can't leave, because Jeannie says, and I quote, "Thou hast set me free. That means I am free to please thee, and I'm going to please thee very much." But then he finally manages to trick her back into the bottle to get her out of the house. But before he can release her outside, a car with General Stone, Dr. Bellows, and Tony's fellow astronauts, Army Captain Roger Healy, and Navy Lieutenant Pete Conway, pull up. Tony quickly dumps the bottle into a nearby garbage can as they approach him. Bellows brings up the matter of Tony's hallucination, claiming he can't reinstate him for active duty until he's certain that he's completely normal, which that's a logical thing to do. I mean, also it's like the 60s. And while Tony tries to convince him that he's normal, a garbage truck pulls up and the contents of the cans are dumped into it, along with Jeannie's bottle. So then, in a panic, Tony quickly races back to the truck and offers the garbage man $10 for the contents and fishes out the bottle. I don't know why he did that, because he literally threw away, but whatever. Bellows and the others gently steer Tony back into his house, convinced that he is normal. He tries to coax Jeannie out of the bottle to prove her existence, but she won't budge. Just as Dr. Bellows is about to phone for an ambulance, Tony suddenly giggles, telling them the whole incident was just a gag, and that he was getting back at Roger and Pete for what they did to him while in training. Obviously, he was kidding, but whatever. So then they all leave, and Jeannie finally gets out of her bottle, and she's mad, saying, "I trusted thee! What manner of master art thou?" And Tony tries to explain that she's not part of the Air Force, and there's just no room for you in my life. But after floating in the air next to Jeannie, his living room briefly transformed by her into a sultan's den, complete with exotic furniture and dancing girls. Just as General Stone and Melissa arrive, his nervousness as Jeannie takes on Melissa's appearance and mimics Melissa's every move and word. "Get that dress," Tony hisses at Jeannie, and Melissa gasps, "What?" And, well, of course, more shenanigans, and, yeah, whatever. Let's just move on. In an early episode of the show, Jeannie helps to break up Tony's engagement to his commanding general's daughter, Melissa, like I mentioned before, and who, along with the general, is actually never seen or mentioned again. And according to producer Sidney Sheldon, he decided against preserving the romantic triangle as a regular plot theme, which, yeah, I mean, it wouldn't really fit this show. At first, Tony tries to keep Jeannie in her bottle most of the time. Jeannie in a bottle. I'm sorry. But he finally relents and allows her to enjoy a life of her own. However, her life is devoted mostly to his, and most of their problems stem both from Jeannie's love for him and her often misguided efforts to please Tony, even when he doesn't want her assistance. Jeannie's magical mischief and Tony's efforts to cover it up constantly puts him under the scrutiny of NASA's resident psychiatrist and Tony's commanding officer, Colonel Dr. Alfred Bellows. A running theme throughout the series has Bellows as the only eyewitness to Jeannie's antics, while Tony, and sometimes his best friend and fellow astronaut, United States Army Captain and later Major Roger Healy, are also present. Tony offers far-fetched explanations to Bellows, who then tries to prove to his superior officers that Tony is either crazy or hiding something. But his efforts typically backfire, and in the end, his superiors never buy it. After Bellows is foiled, he proclaims, "He's done it to me again!"
You can't keep getting away with it! You can't keep getting away with it!
Another frequently used plot device is Jeannie's loss of her powers when she's confined in a closed space. For example, she's unable to leave her bottle when it is corked, and under certain circumstances the next person who removes the cork becomes her new master. A multiple story arc involves a miniature Jeannie becoming trapped in NASA's safe when it's accidentally locked. For the first 16 episodes, Roger's unaware of Jeannie's existence in Tony's life, although they do end up meeting in episode 12. When Roger finds out she's a Jeannie, he steals her bottle, thereby becoming her new master. Though Roger is good-natured, he's somewhat girl-crazy, and often schemes to achieve a vain or selfish gain. He occasionally has hopes of becoming Jeannie's master, so that he can exploit her powers for selfish ends, but he's generally respectful of the relationship between Tony and Jeannie. Tony and Roger are both promoted to the rank of Major late in the first season. In later seasons, Roger's role is retconned to portray him as having known about Jeannie from the beginning, i.e. as his having been with Tony on the space flight whose touchdown led to their discovering Jeannie, which, if you watch the pilot, no, he wasn't there. Also, Jeannie has an evil twin sister who's mentioned in the second season episode. She's also named Jeannie, since, as Barbara Eden's character explains it, all female Jeannies are named Jeannie, and also portrayed by Barbara Eden in a brunette wig. She proves to be scheming and underhanded starting in the third season, as in her initial appearance in Jeannie or the Tiger, repeatedly trying to steal Tony for herself to make herself Tony's real master. Her final attempt in this series comes shortly after Tony and Jeannie get married, with a ploy involving a man played by Barbara Eden's real-life husband at the time, Michael Ansara. In a kind of in-joke, while Jeannie's sister pretends to be attracted to him, she privately scoffs at him. Early in the fifth season, Jeannie is called upon by her Uncle Sully, played by Jackie Coogan, who, fun fact, was in the Charlie Chaplin movie The Kid. That was his first role. He was the kid. I'm pretty sure he was the... You know what I mean. Anyways, she's called upon by her Uncle Sully to become queen of their family's native country, Basenji. Tony inadvertently gives grave offense to Basenji national pride regarding their feud with the neighboring Kasaja. To gain favor, Tony is required by Sully to marry Jeannie to avenge Basenji's honor by killing the ambassador from Kasaja when he visits Nassau. After Sully manages to put suspicion on Tony for various assassination attempts on the ambassador, Tony responds in a fit of anger that he is fed up with Sully and his cohorts and that he would not marry Jeannie even if she were the last Jeannie on Earth. Hearing that, well, yeah, of course Jeannie will return to Basenji and leave Jeannie. Damn, dude, you don't have to say it like that. And since she's gone, he realizes that he's deeply in love with her, so he flies to Basenji to win Jeannie back. Upon their return, Tony introduces Jeannie as his fiancée. She dresses as a modern American woman in public, as she had in multiple previous episodes. This changed the show's premise. Now the objective is to hide Jeannie's magical abilities rather than her existence. The series was created and produced by Sidney Sheldon in response to the great success of rival network's ABC Bewitched series, which had debuted in 1964 as the second most watched program in the United States. Sheldon, inspired by the 1964 film The Brass Bottle, conceived of the idea for a beautiful female Jeannie. Both I Dream of Jeannie and Bewitched were actually produced by Screen Gems. When casting the role for Jeannie, producer Sidney Sheldon could not find an actress who could play the role the way that he had written it. He did have one specific rule. He did not want a blonde Jeannie because the similarity with the blonde witch on Bewitched would be too much. However, after many unsuccessful auditions, he called Barbara Eden's agent. Eden had coincidentally co-starred in The Brass Bottle as mortal Sylvia Kenton, so it works out perfectly. Now, there's one thing you might have noticed about I Dream of Jeannie, but we'll get into that right now, but you know what I mean. So, you may have noticed that the show was black and white when I was showing clips of it. Like when I was showing the clips of the pilot, it was in black and white. The show debuted on Saturday, September 18th, 1965 at 8 p.m. at NBC. When NBC began broadcasting most of its primetime television lineup in color in the fall of 1965, Jeannie was one of the two programs that remained in black and white. In its case, because of the special photographic effects employed to achieve Jeannie's magic. By the second season, however, further work had been done on techniques to create the visual effects in color, which was necessary because by 1966, all primetime series in the United States were being made in color. The monkeys. Sidney Sheldon originally wanted to film the first season in color, but NBC didn't want to pay for the extra expenses, as the network and Screen Gems believed that the series would not make it to a second season. Sheldon offered to pay the extra $400 an episode needed for color filming at the beginning of the series, but Screen Gems executive Jerry Hames advised him, "Sidney, don't throw your money away." So if you ever wondered why Doctor Who, like the first 3 seasons of Doctor Who, like the first 3 Doctors, why the first 3 Doctors and I think the first season of Gilligan's Island is in black and white, it's because of that. Because, well, Doctor Who doesn't really have an excuse, because Doctor Who started airing in 1969. Gilligan's Island has an excuse, though. So we should move on now. Although the series was set in and around what was then known as Cape Kennedy, Florida, and Major Nelson lived at 1020 Palm Drive in nearby Cocoa Beach, locations in California were used in place of those in Florida. Kind of like the monkeys, but not really, because according to the monkeys, they live in Malibu, which it's not really true. And even Mickey Dolenz has said some comments about that I might try to pull up.
This group, imaginary group called the Monkeys, lived on a set, this beach house in Malibu, supposedly.
Anyways, the exterior of the building where he and Major Healy had offices was actually the main building of the NASA Flight Research Center, renamed as the NASA Dryden Flight Research Center in March of 1976 and as the Armstrong Flight Research Center in 2014 at Edwards Air Force Base north of Los Angeles. If you look at some of those old episodes, it's supposed to be shot in Cocoa Beach, but in the background you'll have mountains like Hollywood Hills, Bill Daly said. In actuality, the home of Major Nelson, also uses the Anderson House in Father Knows Best, and then the home of Mr. Wilson and Dennis Menace, was filmed at Warner Brothers Ranch in Burbank on Blondie Street. Many exteriors were filmed at this facility. Interior filming was done at the Sunset Gower Studios, the original Columbia Pictures studio lot in Hollywood. The cast and crew only made 2 visits to Florida's Space Coast, both in 1969. On June 27th, a parade in Cocoa Beach escorted Eden and the rest of the cast to Cocoa Beach City Hall, where she was greeted by fans and city officials. They were then taken to an LC-43 at Cape Canaveral, where she pressed a button and launched a Loki Dartweather rocket. They then had dinner at Bernard's Surf, where Eden was given the State of Florida's Commodore Award for an outstanding acting. Later, the entourage went to Lee Carnes Carnival Club, where Eden was showered with gifts and kissed astronaut Buzz Aldrin on the cheek, just 2 weeks before the Apollo 11 launch. The cast and crew returned on November 25th, 1969, for 3 days for a mock wedding of Eden and Hagman staged for television writers from around the nation, timed to be airing of the nuptial episode on December 2nd, at the Patrick Air Force Base Officers Club. Then Florida Governor Claude R. Kirk Jr. attended and cut the cake for the couple. Barbara Eden returned 27 years later in July of 1986 as a featured speaker for Space Days at the Kennedy Space Center. Cocoa Beach Mayor Joe Morgan presented her an I Dream of Jeannie Lane Street sign, later installed on a short street off of Florida State Road A1A near Lori Wilson Park. On September 15, 2005, the area held the We Dream of Jeannie Festival, including a Jeannie Look-Like contest. Plans for 2004 were interrupted by Hurricane Francis and Hurricane Jeannie. How ironic. The contest, though, the Look-Like contest, was actually still held in 2004, with Bill Daly attending. And then in August 24th of 2012, Cocoa Beach city leaders honored the show with a roadside plaque outside of Lori Wilson Park. Okay, so far we've talked about the background and the setting. Now, let's get into the most important part, besides the theme music, the bottle, and the multiple story arcs or whatever, the multi-part story arcs. The most important thing that we'll be discussing is Jeannie's origin. See, in the first season, Jeannie clearly was originally a human who was turned into a genie by, as later revealed in Season 1, Episode 2, My Hero, the Blue the Djinn when she refused to marry him. The term the Djinn is synonymous with genie. Several members of her family, including her parents, are rather eccentric, but none is a genie. Her mother describes the family as just peasants from the old country. Season 1, Episode 14, What House Across the Street. The Blue the Djinn was played by Barbara Eden's first husband, Michael Ansara. In later seasons, he played King Kamahala, Season 3, Episode 15, The Battle of Waikiki, and Biff Jellicoe, in Season 5, Episode 12, My Sister, My Homewrecker. The topic of genies originally being human is reinstated in Season 2 during the episode How to Be a Genie in 10 Easy Lessons. Jeannie mentions that she has a sister who is a genie, but the phrasing, she was a genie when I left Baghdad, does bring up the question of whether she too was born a genie. One minor subplot that lasted over multiple episodes was when Jeannie was born. In Season 1, Episode 5, G.I. Jeannie, while applying for recruitment into the Air Force, Jeannie clearly states her birthday as July 1st, 21 BC. In Season 2, Episode 10, The Girl Who Never Had a Birthday, Jeannie says she doesn't know her birth date, setting up the 2-episode plot. It was revealed by a computation by computer, Eric, in part 1, that Jeannie was born in 64 BC, and Roger learns the exact date, but it is not until the second episode of that two-story arc, My Master the Great Caruso, that he's able to reveal that her birthday is April 1st. In the third season, this continuity was changed retroactively, and the dialogue implies that Jeannie had always been a genie. All of her relatives are also depicted as genies, including, by the fourth season, her mother, who was played by Barbara Eden beginning in season 4, episode 2, Jeannie and the Wild Pipchicks. Whatever the reason for the shift in the narrative concerning her origins, this new narrative was retained for the rest of the series. In the TV film I Dream of Jeannie 15 years later, has Jeannie reinstating most of her first season origin when she tells her son Tony Jr., who I'm going to call TJ, that she was trapped in a bottle by an evil djinn after she refused to marry him. No specific statement is given about whether he turned her into a genie at that time, or if she had been born into one. In a 1966 paperback novel, I Dream of Jeannie by Al Hine, writing synonymously as Dennis Brewster, published by Pocket Books, very loosely based on the series, Jeannie, in the book, her real name is revealed as Faweza, and her immediate family were established in the story as genies living in Tehran hundreds of years before Tony found her bottle on an island in the Persian Gulf, instead of the South Pacific as depicted on TV. I understand it's weird that now I'm talking about the theme music for I Dream of Jeannie, but that's because, well, the theme music was kind of a complicated thing for the show. The first season theme music was an instrumental jazz waltz written by Richard West. Sidney Sheldon became dissatisfied with West's theme musical score. So, from the second season on, it was replaced with a new theme titled Jeannie, composed by Hugo Montenegro with lyrics from Buddy Kaye. Episodes 20 and 25 used the re-recorded ending of Jeannie for the closing credits with new, longer drum breaks and a different closing riff. But the lyrics were never used in the show. And something else cool, though, because we love to have connections with the Monkees, Gary Goffin and Carole King wrote a theme called Jeannie, but for Sidney Sheldon before the series started, but it was not used. So if Boys in the Heart being an episode of Jeannie was not a connection for the Monkees, this works too. In the third and fourth seasons of the show, another instrumental theme by Hugo Montenegro was introduced that was played during the show's campy scenes, simply titled Mischief. The theme was heard mainly on outdoor locations, showing the characters attempting to do something such as Jeannie learning how to drive, Major Nelson arriving up the driveway, a monkey walking around, or reactions to Dr. Bellows. This theme featured the accompaniment of a sideshow organ, a trombone, and an electric bass. It was introduced in the first episode of season 3 titled Fly Me to the Moon. Now, when I started watching the show a little bit, I was very intrigued with the bottle. I was like, whoa, how'd they make the bottle? Like, how'd they come up with the idea of the bottle? Come to find out, now keep in mind, I'm reading off the Wikipedia for this show, and it says for the bottle section, this section needs, additional citations for verification. Take with that what you will. But anyways, Jeannie's bottle was not even created for the show. The actual bottle was a special Christmas 1964 Jim Beam liquor decanter containing Beam's Choice bourbon whiskey. Who would have thunk it? This whole time, her bottle was a bottle of alcohol. The 60s were a different time. Cool time, but fascinating time. The bottle was designed by Roy Kramer for the Wheaton Bottle Company, and for years, Sidney Sheldon was said to have received one as a gift, and thought it would be the perfect design for the series. Several people in the Screen Gems art department also take credit for finding the bottle. Strong evidence, however, indicates first season director Gene Nelson saw one of the bottles in a liquor store and bought it, bringing it to Sidney Sheldon. Jeannie's bottle was left in its original dark smoke green color with a painted gold leaf pattern to make it look antique. During the first season, the plot description of the pilot episode in TV Guide in September 1964 referred to the bottle as a green bottle, because in the first episode it looked quite rough and weathered. Now remember what I said about how the first season was filmed in black and white, so it makes sense for people to say that. I don't know how the bottle actually looked in real life. Maybe they described it in the article and I wasn't paying attention because I am currently drawing Firefall. But because the first season was filmed in black and white, it wasn't really necessary to color or give the bottle any patterns, but once the show came to color in season 2, the show's art director came up with a brightly colored purple bottle to replicate or replace the original bottle that was used in season 1. The later colorized version of the show's first season tried to present that the smoked glass looked like the original gold leaf design, which was purple, to match the consistent look of the bottle used in the 2nd through 5th season. In this first season, so the first season bottle had a clear glass stopper that Tony took from a 1958 or 56 old granddad bourbon bottle in his home, because the original stopper was left on the beach where Tony found Jeannie, hence why the original cap is not on the bottle. Sorry. I have Henry because he wouldn't stop barking at the window, and he was distracting my train of thought. Stay still. Come on. Okay, so, in the first colored episode, Jeannie returns to the beach, and her bottle is seen to have had its original stopper painted to match the bottle, presumably retrieved by her upon her return there. The rest of the TV series and the TV films use the original bottle stopper. During some close-ups, one can still see the plastic rings that hold the Coke part of the stopper in place. Henry escaped from my arms. Nothing I can do about it. He's just gonna keep barking, so I apologize if you hear him in the background. I really wish there was something I could do to control it, but I can't. Anyways, during the show's first season in black and white, the smoke effect was usually a screen overlay of billowing smoke, sometimes combined with animation, so that's pretty cool. Early color episodes used a purely animated smoke effect, and sometime later, a live smoke pack lifted out of the bottle on a wire was used. Jeannie's colored episodes bottle were painted mainly in pinks and purples, while the bottle for the Blue de Gin was the first season design with a heavy green wash, and Jeannie's sister's bottle was simply a plain unpainted Jim Beam bottle. No one knows exactly how many bottles were used during the show, but members of production have estimated that around 12 bottles were painted and used during the run of the series. The stump bottle was mostly used for the smoke effect, which was broken frequently by the heat and chemicals used to produce the smoke. In the pilot episode, several bottles were used for the opening scene on the beach. One was drilled through the bottom for smoke, and another was used to walk across the sand and slip into Tony's pack. 2 bottles were used from promotional tours to kick off the first season, and 1 bottle was used for the first season production. Barbara Eden actually got to keep one of the colored stump bottles on the last day of filming the final episode of the series, and it was given to her by her makeup woman after the show was canceled while being on hiatus, which I was supposed to add a section here as to why the show got canceled, but I forgot to, so I might add it in there as a last minute thing. According to the DVD release of the first season, Bill Daly owned an original bottle, and according to the Donnie and Marie talk show, which was Donnie Osmond and Marie Osmond's talk show, one day we'll talk about the Osmonds properly, but I already did in my Jackson 5 video. But anyways, Larry Hagman also owned an original bottle. In the antepenultimate episode, Hurricane Jeannie, Nelson dreams that Dr. Bellows discovers Tony's secret and that Jeannie's bottle is broken when dropped. A broken bottle is shown on camera. This was intended to be the series' final episode and is often shown that way in syndication. On several occasions, multi-part story arcs were created to serve as backgrounds for national contests. During the second season, in a story that is the focus of a 2-part episode, and a peripheral plot of 2 further episodes, the Guess Jeannie's Birthday contest began with the opening 2-part episode on November 14, 1966, concluding with the name of the winner revealed after the end of the 4th episode, My Master the Great Caruso, on December 5th. It was established that Jeannie did not know her birthday, and her family members could not agree on when it was either. Tony and Roger used NASA's powerful new computer and horoscopic guidance based on Jeannie's traits to calculate it. The year is quickly established as 64 BC, but only Roger is privy to the exact date, and he decides to make a game out of revealing it. This date became the basis of the contest, but then Jeannie finally forces it out of him at the end of the 4th episode. Her birthday's April 4th. In a 3rd season 4-part episode, Jeannie Who's Got the Genie, January 16th through February 6th of 1968, Jeannie is locked in a safe bound for the moon. Any attempt to force the safe or use the wrong combination will destroy it with an explosive. Jeannie is in there so long that whoever opens the safe will become her master. The episode spread out over 4 weeks, during which a contest was held to guess the safe's combination. This explains why Larry Hagman is never seen saying the combination out loud. His mouth is hidden behind the safe, safe, or the shot is on Jeannie when he says it. The combination was not decided until just before the episode aired, with Hageman's voice dubbed in. Over the closing credits, Barbara Eden announced and congratulated the contest winner, with 497 as the winning combination. And finally, in the 4th season, a 2-part episode, The Case of My Vanishing Master, from January 6th to January 13th of 1969, concerned Tony being taken to a secret location somewhere in the world, while a perfect double took his place at home. A contest was held to guess the location where Tony had been taken. Unlike the earlier contests, the answer was not revealed within the story. At the end of Invisible House for Sale, which was aired February 3rd, 1969, a special contest epilogue had Jeannie and Tony revealed to the audience the secret location, which was Puerto Rico, followed by the name of the grand prize winner. So believe it or not, but Jeannie did actually have some merchandising. There were 2 issues of a comic book published in 1966. She would eventually get comics again in 2001-2002 when Airwave published 3 standalone comics. In 1965, Milton Bradley Company published a tie-in board game. And video games were released by Trendmasters for Microsoft Windows in 95 and 96. And then eventually she got a slot machine game that was introduced in 2015. Now I know that sounds weird. And that's because that is weird, but I would really love the Milton Bradley Company board game. I don't know what it is about TV shows getting board games, but considering that Funky Phantom got a board game, well, they didn't get a board game, but they had games, you know? I wish the Monkees got stuff like that. Speaking of the Monkees, let's talk about how I Dream of Jeannie and the Monkees are sorta connected. They're not really connected, but they're sorta connected. Whoa, wait a minute. What the fuck is that?
Oh no! Oh no!
I Dream of Jeannie and the Monkees were both produced by Screen Gems, and they both aired on NBC. But I Dream of Jeannie came out before the Monkees did. I Dream of Jeannie came out in 65, while the Monkees came out in 66. The Monkees actually constantly made references to I Dream of Jeannie and used prop references as well. They went so far as to find a genie lamp in one of their episodes. They then made a joke when they find it and say, "Imagine that, wrong show." You can also see some of the Monkees albums shown in one episode of I Dream of Jeannie, which, speaking of I Dream of Jeannie, which we're circling back to, Jeannie the Hip Hippie is the 6th episode of Season 3 of I Dream of Jeannie, and the 67th overall episode of the series. It first aired on October 17, 1967, on NBC. The plot of the episode is that Tony's vacation is cancelled as Mrs. Bellows can't find her group to perform at her charity event. Jeannie steps in and brings 4 people together who claim they can't sing or play. However, she gives them the power to do so, and they are booked by Mrs. Bellows. When the drummer doesn't turn up, though, Jeannie takes his place. The group actually consists of professional musicians, William Lewis and Steve O'Reilly, who you may not know, but you may know Boyce and Hart. Boyce and Hart were the ones who wrote songs for the Monkees a lot. Funnily enough, the theme tune to the Monkees television show plays in the background when Jeannie summons the artists. Now, you probably think this video is over already, but no, it's not. Because Jeannie had a cartoon, which it's a spin-off, but not really because it has little in common with its parent show. So, everybody's gonna get a cartoon, but not the Monkees. And you make 2 of the characters in the show look like Peter and Mickey. And since these 2 characters are like Peter and Mickey, I'm going to be calling them that throughout this video. So if you get confused, don't be, because this is just how the way it is. I'm never going to get a Monkees cartoon, and it's about time I accept that. And Anyways, Jeannie is an American anime television series that originally aired for 16 episodes, or 16 episode season. It only had one season, which is typical for most Hanna-Barbera shows, so I'm not mad this time. It aired on CBS from September 8th to December 22nd of 1973. And it was produced by Hanna-Barbera, but also by Screen Gems, because, well, Screen Gems produced Jeannie, I Dream of Jeannie. Anyways, and its founders, William Hanna and Joseph Barbera, were the executive producers of the show. Like I said before, despite this cartoon being a spin-off of I Dream of Jeannie, it's got nothing in common with I Dream of Jeannie. In this version of I Dream of Jeannie, or just called Jeannie because the show's called Jeannie, Jeannie is rescued on the beaches of Southern California by a high school student named Corey Anders, who looks like Mickey Dolenz, so I will be calling him Mickey Dolenz. Jeannie is accompanied by a genie in training named Babu, voiced by one of the Three Stooges, Joe Besser, and they become companions to Mickey Dolenz and his best friend Henry Glop, who looks like Peter Tork, so I'll be calling him Peter Tork, both of whom also help Jeannie and Babu adjust to their new home as well as life in Los Angeles. The series was marketed towards a younger demographic than the live-action sitcom it was based on. Julie McWhither replaces Barbara Eden in the lead role of Jeannie. She also played Bubbles and Jabberjaw and Baby Smurf and Sassette in Smurfs, so she's very well known. And Mark Hamill plays Mickey Dolenz, and he also sings a theme song, so good on you, Mark Hamill. And like I said before, Babu is voiced by Joe Besser, who actually had a successful voice acting career at the time, but also was one of the Three Stooges. So yeah. Jeannie was shown as part of CBS's Saturday morning cartoon programming block, and the episodes aired between 73 and 75. The show was also included on the Wheel series, Fred Flintstones and Friends, and had crossovers with the Scooby-Doo franchise. I will not do anything about that. This is the way it is, alright? Though a few retrospective reviews of the show had been negative, it did gain popularity after Warner Brothers bought Hanna-Barbera and its properties in 1966, or 1996, I don't know why I said 1966, as was one of the few series not to be owned by them, as Sony currently holds the rights to, Jeannie, and along with the rest of the franchise, and it remains popular with the public and industry professionals, and has been recently distributed by two streaming services, Crackle and CTV Throwback. An episode can also be viewed at the UCLA Film and Television Archive. So, what's the plot of the cartoon? Well, it's really different from the live-action show, and I will prove it to you. You see, in the cartoon, high school student Mickey Dolenz discovers Jeannie's bottle while surfing and draws the title character out of it. Mickey becomes the master to Jeannie and her apprentice Babu. Portrayed as a 16-year-old, Jeannie is shown as training the junior genie Babu, who frequently causes trouble due to his inexperience with magic. Babu is characterized as having the habit of popping in at the most inopportune times. The pair become close friends and protectors to Mickey, who is Jeannie's love interest, so wow, good on you, Mickey. Episodes typically focus on Mickey's attempts to hide Jeannie and Babu's true identities as he attends Center City High School, and Jeannie's difficulties with adjusting to life in 1970s California. Mickey's storylines also include his best friend, or his friend, Peter Tork. Other than Mickey, Peter is the only other person aware of Jeannie's identity as a genie. Other supporting characters include Mickey's mom, Mrs. Dolenz, a frenemy named S. Melvin Farthingale, which is a stupid name, and the master of all genies known as the Great Haji, and Debbie. Wow, they had to make it so funny. Anyways, S. Melvin is portrayed as a snobbish snoop who frequently sneaks out of the Anders home due to his, or sneaks around, not in. He doesn't sneak into their house, he sneaks around their home because he's suspicious about Jeannie and Babu. Jeannie, of course, is the animated spin-off of I Dream of Jeannie, although it has a substantially different plot than its parent show. In this version, Mickey replaces astronaut Major Tony Nelson, and while I Dream of Jeannie was a family show, it focused on 60s-style relationships, especially in its first season, the NASA Moon Project, and broad slapstick. The humor used for the animated Jeannie was more focused towards teenagers and children, and is of the Archie comics nature, with themes of dating, school events, and friendship. Like the original series, Jeannie is emotionally attached to her assumed boyfriend, and becomes jealous in the face of competition, a staple of teenage comics and sitcoms. Unlike the original series, though, Jeannie is depicted as a younger, and has red hair instead of blonde, and she activates her magic by shaking her ponytail rather than blinking her eyes. Guys, I'm going to lose my fucking shit. Do you mean to tell me that some commentators spell Corey's name as Corky? Corky like Mickey Dolenz Circus Boy? Jeannie was a Hanna-Barbera production, with the company's founders William Hanna and Joseph Barbera serving as the show's executive producers. Charles August Nichols was the director, and Iwo Takamoto was the producer. We've mentioned him before a lot in this channel when it comes to Hanna-Barbera shows. Anyways, I Dream of Jeannie creator Sidney Sheldon is not included in the credits for Jeannie, but which the AV Club's Will Harris attributes to the extreme differences between the two shows, because Hanna-Barbera created Jeannie to appeal to younger demographic, you know? The musical director was Hoyt Curtin, and the musical supervisor was Paul DeCorte. Thank God it wasn't Don Kirshner. I hate Don Kirshner! Anyways, Jeannie was a co-production between Hanna-Barbera and Columbia Pictures. If you're wondering why, it's because Columbia's Screen Gems television division was the owner of I Dream of Jeannie. Hanna-Barbera had a long association with Columbia and Screen Gems as they distributed their earlier shows, which includes The Flintstones and The Jetsons. However, the rights to all Hanna-Barbera properties were transferred to Warner Brothers in 1996. Hanna-Barbera, however, did not animate the titles for the original I Dream of Jeannie. That credit goes to Patty Verlang, but they did animate a variety of opening titles, including both Darren's, for Screen Gems' other show, Bewitched. Like I mentioned before, Julie McWhither replaces Barbara Eden as the role of Jeannie, and Mark Hamill provides the role for Corey Anders, aka Mickey Dolenz, in his first acting job. Along with voicing the character, he sings the theme music. Mark wouldn't become a well-known voice actor until his role as the Joker in the television show Batman the Animated Series. Also, I don't think Star Wars came out yet, because I'm pretty sure the first Star Wars movie came out in 1975, so I think this is really before he really truly blew up as a actor and, well, voice actor in general. Bob Hastings voices Henry Gloop, aka Peter Tork, who was the animated counterpart of Bill Daly's Major Roger Healy character from the live-action TV series, while Joe Besser portrayed the comic foil Babu. Joe Besser was like very good voice actor in like the 70s and 80s, because he also voiced characters not only in like Yogi Space Race, but also the show called The Houndcats that I will talk about in a separate video. And he also actually appeared in I Dream of Jeannie along with members of the Three Stooges, which I have to Google that ASAP. I want to see that. Debbie, Mark, and Mrs. Anders, aka Mrs. Dolenz, are played by Arlene Galanka, Michael Bell, who you know for being in a lot of my videos because I mentioned him a lot, and Janet Waldo, respectively. Also, Janet Waldo is, what is she? Judy Jetson. Right. Although, one thing to note, though, is that Mrs. Anders is voiced by Jeannie Tyler in episode 11, while Janet Waldo voices her in episode 16. John Stevenson and Tommy Cook voiced Grit Haji and S. Melvin Farthinghill, aka Smelvin, respectively, and Sherry Albroni, Julie Bennett, Don Messick, and Jeannie Tyler provide additional voice acting for the series. Jeannie aired on CBS with its 16 30-minute episodes initially broadcasted in 1973. CBS continued to run episodes until August 1975 as part of its Saturday morning cartoon programming block. The episode, Decathlon, is available for viewing at the UCLA Film and Television Archive. Jeannie was made available digitally by CTV Television Network through their streaming service CTV Throwback, as well as on Sony and Columbia streaming service Crackle, which I didn't know was their streaming service, but good to know. Jeannie was shown as part of the Wheel series Fred Flintstone and Friends, which had Fred Flintstone host excerpts taken from Hanna-Barbera programs. Not only that, but it had several crossovers with the Scooby-Doo franchise. Babu appears in the Scooby-Doo show Scooby's All-Star Laugh Olympics, in which he participates on the Scooby-Doobies team. Babu, Jeannie, Mickey, and Peter return for the new Scooby-Doo movies episode Mystery in Persia, also known as Scooby-Doo Meets Jeannie. Jeannie helps trap the genie Jadal the Evil inside a bottle and uncover that Abdullah is his master. Now, you'd think I end the video here, but no, I'm not. We have one final thing to talk about, and that's the 2 TV reunion films for I Dream of Jeannie. The first TV film we'll be talking about is I Dream of Jeannie 15 years later. It came out in 1985 on October 20th and premiered on NBC. It was produced by Columbia Pictures Television. It's the first of the two reunion films based on the show. Barbara Eden reprises her role as Jeannie, and can I just say, she looks so fine. I'm sorry, bro. Look at her. Holy shit. Bill Daly also reprised his role as Tony's best friend Roger, and Hayden Rourke in his final film role reprised his role as Dr. Bellows. The only person who didn't reprise their role was what's his name? Larry Hagman as Tony, but this is only because Dallas was still airing and he couldn't do it, so they had Tony Nelson being played by Wayne Rogers instead, who Wayne Rogers is from MASH as Trapper John McEntire. Funnily enough, though, this film was directed by William Asher, who was the main director of the 60s show Bewitched. You know, the show that the I Dream of Jeannie show didn't want to copy. Yeah, how ironic is that? Andre DeShields was in this movie? What? I'm sorry, I got distracted. Andre DeShields from Hadestown is a character in this movie? The movie was filmed at the Burbank Studios in Burbank, California from April 24th, 1985 to May of 1985. Barbara Eden and Wayne Rogers filmed the beach rescue scene on location at Zuma Beach in Malibu, California, using the same location the original pilot episode was shot in the year 1964. So, with all of that out of the way, let's talk about the movie. Jeannie has been a happily married housewife for 15 years to her astronaut husband Tony Nelson and has a teenage son named TJ. When Tony's promoted to colonel and is about to retire from the NASA space program, Jeannie decides to give him a celebration party in their backyard. However, egged on by his colleagues to retire with a dramatic flair, Tony breaks his promise to Jeannie for one more spaceflight aboard the space shuttle, this time with a female astronaut, Captain Nellie Hunt. And because this is Jeannie, you know she's pissed. So she decides to separate from her husband temporarily to be a more independent modern woman. In the meantime, though, Jeannie's always scheming evil sister, Jeannie 2, is determined to have Tony for herself. So she teams up with Haji, the chief genie, operating a fitness gym in the United States. That's who Andre DeShields plays. To break up her sister's marriage, Jeannie 2 traps her sister in a bottle with a special stopper that nobody but another genie could open. Meanwhile, Tony's spaceflight is in trouble. The engines will fire and the shuttle is on a collision course with a meteoroid. When TJ comes home and hears his mother trapped in a bottle, he attempts to open the bottle. At first, the stopper would not move, but his mother encouraged him to blink, like she does to invoke her powers. Jeannie encourages her son to concentrate and to blink again. This time, the stopper moves. TJ then discovers that he inherited his mom's powers and is a genie himself. Earlier on, TJ did see his mom using her powers, and she explained to him about her heritage, revealing that she's a genie and how she became a genie. She also blinked TJ with her back to the day when she first met Tony, so that's pretty cute. After blinking and releasing his mother from her prison, Jeannie and TJ go to Haji, explaining the trick. Rules must have been changed since the 70s because Jeannie now needs special dispensation from the chief of genies in order to do something major, like, saving her husband's life. Haji gives Jeannie a magic amulet and tells her to blink 3 times during the full moon while holding it. If she does this, Tony and the shuttle crew will be saved. But the magic comes at a terrible price. Every mortal that has ever known Jeannie and TJ, including Tony, will forget they even exist. TJ tells his mother that they will lose their dad either way, so they might as well do it so he can live. So she invokes her magic, saving the shuttle from certain doom, and is able to return to the ground. However, Jeannie got Haji to agree to one final night together for her and Tony, allowing Jeannie to say farewell to Tony in her heart. The next morning, while Tony's asleep, Jeannie alters the bedroom and then the house to what it might look like if Tony remained a bachelor. With TJ, Jeannie moves on with her life. The final scene shows Jeannie and Tony passing each other on the street, and Jeannie magically gets Tony's attention, indicating that they will in fact find each other again. Before the film ends, Jeannie breaks the fourth wall and says to the viewers,
Haji made me agree to an ending. He never said there couldn't be a new beginning.
The film then ends with Tony following Jeannie down the street. Prime Runtime Nelson ratings for I Dream of Jeannie 15 years later were high. High ratings by the National Broadcasting Company, aka NBC, allowed for this reunion episode to be rebroadcasted on March 30th of 1986, Easter Sunday, also in prime time. You're probably wondering how to stream the movie before we move on to the second one. It's available to stream on YouTube and also on Tubi. Love that. That's how I got the clips for that. Let's go on to the next movie. The second reunion film is called I Still Dream of Jeannie, and was made in 1991, obviously produced by Columbia Pictures Television, and premiered on NBC on October 20th. Kind of like the other one, but not really. Once again, Barbara Eden and Bill Daly were the only ones to reprise their roles in this film. Larry Hagman couldn't come again as Tony Nelson, but he had an excuse this time. He had just completed a 14-year run on Dallas and was taking a vacation with his family. And although the character Tony Nelson is mentioned throughout the film and briefly appears in the animated opening sequence, he remains unseen for the rest of the film. Ironically, though, one of his Dallas co-stars, Ken Kercheval, appears in the film. The irony is further emphasized by the fact that Hagman and Kercheval played arch-enemies on Dallas, and the character that Kercheval plays in I Still Dream of Jeannie is one that fills in the spot that would have gone to Hagman if he had been available to play Tony Nelson again for this film. This movie was filmed from July to August of 1991, this time in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Some exterior and interior scenes, especially the Nassau ones, were shot at the Simon Fraser University in Burnbrae, British Columbia, and notably in the Academic Quadrangle and the Mackenzie Cafe. The ski lodge and marathon scenes were filmed on location in and around Murdo Fraser Park in North Vancouver, with the lodge scenes in the caretaker's cottage and the marathon in both the park and on Terrace Avenue and Paisley Road. The scenes in the rundown parts of town were shot in the downtown East Side and Gastown. The Houston downtown scenes were shot alongside both Robinson Street and Granville Street, as the Blue Horizon Hotel and Vancouver Art Gallery street lighting can be seen in the background of some scenes. The film still used the same opening sequence as the last movie, with an updated version of the 1985 theme. Colonel Tony Nelson is incommunicado on a mission for Nassau. Jeannie thus does not know where his whereabouts are, or if he'll return on time to attend an important occasion. A distinguished academic presentation speech is scheduled to be made by their son, TJ. Mr. Simpson, one of TJ's favorite educators, looks forward to meeting Nelson. Jeannie goes to Nassau offices to inquire with the General Westcott about her husband's mission. He merely reminds her the information is classified top secret. So her and TJ conspire on a B&E to steal the mission file. They are beaten to the punch, though, by a pair of snoopers named Eddie and Goozer. These two are after information with potential black market value, which they expect to find in a file titled Xenon. They make off with the file prior to Jeannie and her son's arrival. Jeannie had suspected that the general would be having like a misleading file system or filing system as a security measure, so she explains this to TJ, who helps her seek out the code key hidden in the office. Once found, it reveals that the Nelson mission summary is in the purloined Xenon file. They then later relayed this hurdle to longtime family friend Colonel Roger Healy. To make matters worse, meanwhile, Jeannie's sister Jeannie 2 comes back and turns up the metal. She reminds Shamlar, Jeannie in authority, of certain mandates. Jeannie may now remain on the plane of reality for more than 3 months without an earthly master, and Tony has been away for a long time. Shamlar rules that Jeannie has 2 weeks to either find her husband or an eligible new master. If she returns, she must return to Mesopotamia forever. Despairing of finding Tony, Jeannie begins her desperate search to find the right substitute master. She considers men she knows. All indications that Mr. Simpson is not a bachelor, though being one is precedent to being a master. Likewise, all regret that Healy may not fill the position as he is not unwed. Comedy ensues with Jeannie trying to find the usual avenues for a woman who's single and looking. At a singles bar, she meets a promising candidate whom she finds handsome and kind. Jeannie too surveys and intervenes. She conjures a shrew of a counterfeit wife to come in, berate the man for infidelity, and call Jeannie a "whoa, okay then." He ardently protests that neither Jeannie nor the supposed wife are what they say she says they are. She punches him out and carries him unconscious from the bar, firefighter style. Oh my god, what is this movie? The overarching endeavors to sort the Nelson situation from the criminal enterprise lead TJ to crossing paths with Goozer and Eddie again. Neither party realizes the other's connection. Undercover as garbage men, the two goons bicker out about offering TJ a what? What is this movie? This Wikipedia is literally going to be a death to me if I don't Google what the hell's going on. I need to know what's going on. What is going on?
Say the word. No! No, no, no!
No, I mean,
Mr. Simpson, I am begging you.
all right, yes, I'll be your answer.
Okay, this Wikipedia was so... Oh my god, I thought that Jeannie and her son were gonna die. Also, her son's hot. But no, they're fine. It's all good. Anyways, that's the whole video. I'm not gonna bother reading the reception for this, but, yeah. You know, I had a lot of fun with this one. Was it as torturous as the Brady Bunch one? No, this movie was... This whole franchise was tameable for me. I could handle this a lot more than the Brady Bunch shit, because that was honestly startlingly traumatizing. But, yeah, I'm so grateful for 700 subscribers. Expect more videos, and when I hit 800, you'll probably either get a Gilligan's Island video. I think Gilligan's Island's gonna win. I think we're gonna get a Gilligan's Island video.
According to the poll, Gilligan's Island managed to beat Saved by the Bell, so yes, your next special video will be Gilligan's Island.